Never heard of frequency separation? Well, we're going to change that today. On today's episode, we're going to explore this powerful technique called frequency separation. So let's get started. Hey, Len Erickson here, purveyor of light, with another Photoshop video tutorial for you today. Today we've got a really interesting one, a little bit on the advanced side, but well worth the extra effort. Today we're going to be doing a retouching technique called frequency separation. This is going to allow us to retouch the skin without having any loss of texture or the pores remain intact, and it results in a very realistic end retouching. One of the things that we don't want to have when we retouch the skin is to wind up with our model looking like a piece of plastic or a mannequin. We want to have the pores in the skin still in the skin when we retouch. So let me go ahead and show you how easy it is, and we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing here is I'm selected on my background layer, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that layer by hitting Command J, and I'm going to hit Command J one more time. So now I have a total of 3 layers, all duplicate of each other. I'm going to select the first layer, and I'm going to go ahead and rename that Tone and Color. Okay, and the upper layer, I'm going to select it and rename it to Texture. Again, thus the technique, we're going to separate the color from the texture of the skin. Okay, by separating the two on 2 distinct layers, we're going to be able to work on each one individually, thus not affecting the other. Okay, so, alright, with the tone and color selected, okay, I'm going to quickly go up to Filter, and then Blur, and then Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to cancel that here, turn off the texture layer for now, and I am going to do the blur and Gaussian Blur. This way we can see what happens here on the screen. Okay, so we have the slider radius. I can start off here at the minimum, and I can slide it over and observe how much blur. So how do you know how much blur to go with? Well, every picture is going to be different. But what we're looking for is the skin tone, okay? Don't look for the texture. Don't look for that. You're looking for the blending of the skin tones to come together. Okay, so I just keep moving the slider and watching the skin. You'll notice how the skin is starting to come together. Okay? And I want to do that until the skin is exactly where I want it to be. Okay? So that's not too bad right now. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead with 9.7 right now, and I'm going to hit OK. And now we have a blurry layer. But don't worry, I promise it's going to get a lot better from here. Okay, so now we have that. Now we're going to quickly select the texture layer, and now we're going to turn that on, and we are going to then go up to Image and Apply Image. And I'm going to select the source as the layer of the tone and color. So our source is going to be tone and color. We're going to be a blending mode of subtract. And now the special sauce, okay? These 2 numbers, a scale of 2 and an offset of 128. Okay? Write those numbers down because that's what you will use on all your images. Okay? Some mathematician genius calculated out this formula that if you put a scale of 2 and an offset of 128, we wind up with the perfect mix. So we go ahead and hit OK, and we can see the end result here is we're looking like a high pass filter, okay, where we're seeing the edges of the image. Okay, this is a normal sharpening technique we used to use years ago. Okay, and it's very, very similar process. So now we have our texture layer, and now we're going to change the blending mode from normal, okay, to linear light. And you say, well, that looks just like the original image. Well, it's exactly the original image, because now we have a texture layer and we have the tone layer canceling each other out. Okay, so when we put them on or off, it doesn't change the image. We have the blurry image there, and we have this. They cancel each other out. They're almost like opposites of ease other. Okay, so for now, for sakes and ease here, I'm just going to select both of these layers, and I'm going to group them together. So now that we have a nice group, okay, I can turn around and turn the group on and off. You'll notice there's no change to the image when I do. Okay, that's because, again, the two layers are canceling each other out. Okay, so now we're coming down. Now that we have these all grouped up and these layers ready to go, now I'm going to show you how you actually do the retouching. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn off the texture layer. Okay, so now we have a nice blurry image, and I want to use the lasso tool, and I want to do a selection. Okay, so I'm just going to make a quick selection on the skin, and then I want to take a look at the feather. Okay, we want a very soft selection, so I'm going to hit Q for quick mask, and that's going to allow me to see my selection. So I can look here and say, is that nice and soft? Is it going to blend? The main thing what I want to do is make sure that it blends. Okay, so I hit Q again to turn that off, and I'll show you here what a hard edge selection looks like if I have a feather of 0, and then I do another selection and I hit Q. You can see how hard that selection is. You don't want to have a hard selection. You want to have a nice feather selection so that things blend really easy together. Okay, so I've already determined for this image that a feather of 30 is perfect, and so I'm going to go ahead and do a selection. Okay, so now I'm looking at the skin, and I'm just going to make very, very rough selections and come in, and I'm going to go up to filter, and then blur, and then Gaussian blur. Now what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the skin to determine when the skin tones come together. Okay, again, remember, our texture is preserved on the layer above us. So no matter what we do on this layer, we cannot affect the texture or the pores of the skin. All right, here we can only affect the tone and color. So starting with the radius at its minimum, I slide it over a little bit, watching the results. Okay, and I'm looking for the skin to come together. Now you see how the skin is blending together here? Okay, I can come in and just keep selecting until I feel the skin is blended. Okay, you don't want to do too much. You just want to make sure that it's believable. Okay, and I think that's going to be a little much. All right, we're going to try 36 here. I think it's a little strong, but we'll see how it works out. Again, this is going to be a personal call, okay? And I also want this to show up well on the video, so I'm going a little heavy-handed on the strength of things. So I go ahead and hit OK, and now I have my Gaussian blur in place. I then deselect, and I start my next selection. And I can hit the shortcut Command F to repeat the blur and come in and deselect and select another area and Command F to repeat the blur, and we just continue on working just in this fashion. Okay, blending the skin together by using the blur. Okay, and again, all I'm doing is hitting the hotkey Command F to repeat the exact same blur that I've put on it. And I'm just crudely selecting here and repeating the blur. And again, be careful of not to go into the lips or anything else like that. But again, Command and go around and work carefully, walk around. Like I said, crudely selecting. You don't have to be a very accurate thing here, but just come in, do your selections. Okay, and you can see how we are blending together. Okay, you can see how everything is coming together. And you just continue to walk around the picture. And again, you're going to do a much more careful job than I did. But you're just going to do your selections, come around, repeating the blur. Okay, and don't forget to do the neckline. Okay, you don't want the face to be retouched and then to have forgotten the neckline. Okay, and again, make sure you get the areas. Okay. Okay. All right. So again, I'm doing this rather quickly, but you get the idea. Okay. So now that we have done the basic retouching here of the smoothing of the skin, okay, now you're going to see the magic. Okay, you can remember, because the whole purpose of this is frequency separation. Remember, all of our pores, our texture, and everything of the skin is still up on this layer. So when I turn this layer on, look at that. All of the skin and the pores of the skin all are restored and intact. Okay? So now, if you want to see the before and after, just to see how much difference it does make in the retouching process. Okay? Turn the group on. There's before and there's after. Again, before, look at the blotchiness, the unevenness in the skin tones. Okay? And look at the after. The skin is now evened out. The tones are evened out. But yet the pores and the texture of the skin still remains. Okay? So, one last thing here. Not that this one really needs it, but if you did have some texture that you needed to adjust, simply select the texture layer that you wish to work on. Okay, you can turn off the other layers if you wish, but I'd like to just work right on the texture layer. And this time we're going to go ahead and hit the spot healing brush, and keep your brush as small as possible, and just do a little retouching on where you want to on the skin. Anything that you feel detracts from the image. Okay, and then you can work on the pores. And again, we are only working on the texture here because we're on the top layer. So we can actually work on the image just from a texture standpoint. Okay, and don't be heavy-handed, don't overdo, but this is how we do complete separation. So anything that you feel detracts from it, you can simply come in and do your adjustments. Okay, so there you have it. Frequency separation. One more before, and here's the after. Quite a difference, isn't it? And you'll notice it's very believable. Okay, look at the blotchiness of the skin. Look at the tonalities, how they differ in the skin now. And now we're together. That's because we were able to separate the texture from the tone and color, and we would be able to affect one without affecting the other. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And if you did, if you have any suggestions or questions, please leave them in the comments below. And if you like videos like this, be sure and hit the subscribe button We have a video every new video once a week. So I look forward to hearing from you. In between now and next week, take care.